My name is Lillian Rodriguez, and this is my confessional for the 5th day of class. So, to start off, explaining Plato's theory of forms to a family member or a friend, I explained it to my mom. And I was able to lead her to understanding. So, the way that the conversation went, first I started off by telling her the issue that Plato had, which is that he believes that most people do not have the intellectual capacity or capabilities of differentiating knowledge from beliefs when they go to define an abstract concept. And I think one of the reasons that I was able to guide my mom to understanding is after each point, I was able to break it down and ask questions to make sure she understood what I was saying. So, knowledge from beliefs, you break that down due to abstract concepts. Abstract concepts are concepts that do not have data or logic, or not logic, but do not have data or facts behind them that you can only prove with logic and reasoning. So I explained that in how that when most people, the issue that Plato had was most people, when they go to define it, they jump straight to their emotions and their feelings, which is not probable for an argument because everyone has different emotions and feelings. You can't define something based off of that because it differs from person to person. So that was the issue that he had. And then in order to solve that issue, he gave us the theory of forms, which you have the top form, which is the realm of ideas, which you cannot fully understand. They are broad, wide concepts, philosophical concepts that you cannot fully understand. So I broke that down into things such as social, or not just social justice, but justice as a whole, love, beauty. I gave examples from class that we got for this, how you cannot fully understand them because they have no true definition. It is knowledge. You can only get a imperfect definition from them, and that is the top realm. And then I explained the bottom realm, which is the realm of forms, which are the physical forms that we can define, that we can understand, that us as humans. And I explained to my mom something that I learned in small group, which was that questions you should be asking to see if something is a form is if you can use your five senses for it. So can you see it? Can you touch it? Can you hear it? Can you smell it? Can you perceive it? Because the form realm is the perceptible realm, something that you can physically see, touch, and hear, something that can be proven. So this is the base theory. This is Plato's theory of forms. And then from there, I went and I used examples that we had done in class, and I took my mom through each step. So first, I started by explaining what we did for beauty, which was breaking down, which was having everyone give their own different idea of beauty. And I asked my mom a question that we were asked in class, is this the criteria for beauty? She said no. And I said, so then these are different types of beauty, different forms of beauty, different things that are beautiful. So from there, she agreed. And then from there, I said how in order to find the closest definition you can get for something in the realm of ideas, you find the forms and then you find a common thread through all of the forms. So from there, once again with beauty, I told my mom how we take all of those forms and you get to that all of these things are appealing. They all have appeal, which you would then take that and use it in the definition that you would get for beauty. And then I also used an example that we did in small group, which was the word sin. So from sin, you could break down different types of sin, or different forms of sin. So from there, you would get what my group did in small group, what my partner and I got. We said stealing from someone when you don't need it, buying hundreds of dollars worth of clothes when you don't need those clothes, things like that, which are widely considered sins. You would find a through line through them. So the through line that you could get from those is that they're all wrong morally, which you would then use in your definition. And then I also told my mom about how another thing we found out in small group was that forms in the, not forms, but things in the ideas realm can have forms that are still ideas. So like what we did in small group, I took my mom step by step through the conversation that we had. So Keith told us, what about justice? What are forms of justice? And we got social justice, environmental justice, and political justice. So then I asked my mom, can you see political justice? Can you see it? Can you touch it? Can you hear it? She said no. So I said that would mean that it is still in the realm of ideas, even though it is a form of justice, which I then led my mom to the conclusion how things can be forms of ideas and still be ideas themselves. Which, from there, I asked my mom if she was sure that she understood, and if she understood the process of defining things using the theory of forms, and she said yes. So that is how the conversation went with my mom, and I think the main reason I was able to lead her to an understanding was because I took her step by step through what we did in class using the same examples, and because we had used those examples in class, I was able to clear up any confusion, and I was able to read them back to her in a way that I knew would work because it worked for helping me understand it. And then I also I didn't use big fancy language to try and make myself sound smart. I used the basic language that we used in class that I knew my mom would also understand. So then next, connect theory of forms to scientific and philosophical argumentation. So theory of forms, you would use that for philosophical argumentation, but it connects because you're only ever going to argue on data and definitions are philosophical concepts, and Plato's theory of forms helps us define philosophical concepts and their meaning. So if I were to be debating on a law or something that had to do with justice, I could then say, well, using Plato's theories of forms, justice would be in the realm of ideas. I cannot define that. However, a form of justice would be a law, and from there I can use law, say another form of justice, sending a kid who did something against the rules to detention. I can find a common thread line in those, and I can then use them to define justice or to get a deeper understanding of justice, which I can then use in my argumentation for philosophical arguments. And then also for scientific arguments, this would be in the vein of scientific arguments, this would help me differentiate scientific and philosophical arguments. And also, like what Plato was trying to solve, separating my beliefs and my feelings from knowledge. Using this theory of forms, I can make sure that when I'm trying to define something philosophically or even scientifically, I'm not accidentally going off of what I believe and how I feel instead of the facts and the data, which is the issue that Plato was trying to solve. And then finally, connect theory of forms to what we've learned about characteristics and functions. So theory of forms is actually what I believe is just a different type of finding characteristics and functions, because when you really think about it, philosophically, it's how you find characteristics and functions, because you have your base words. So instead of a chair, for scientifically, we could say justice. You have to then find a form of justice, and multiple forms of justice, because justice would be in the ideas realm, which is just like finding your characteristics and your functions. You still have to find what is always true for every single one. So when you think about it, the forms are characteristics or functions of the ideas. So once again, with the justice example, you get law. Law would be a function of justice or a characteristic of justice. They would be the same. That's how you would connect them. Or if we did social justice, a form of social justice would be protesting. It would be protesting, and protesting would be a characteristic or a function of social justice. So it is actually a lot like the Socratic theory or Socratic method and the scientific method. It's just we're using it for philosophical argumentation. And that is the end of my confessional.